Discover 10 incredible Aztec punishments that revealed hidden truths about life and death. Jake had never thought a book could change everything. But as he flipped through the dusty pages of the ancient volume he found hidden in his attic, he felt a pulse of revelation. It was all about punishments harsher than anything he'd witnessed in his small town, and yet, strangely illuminating. Those long-gone civilizations had done more than just impose penalties. They had defined their beliefs around justice, sacrifice, and the consequence of choices. As rain pattered against the roof, he felt the storm outside mirrored the chaos in his own life, a mechanic struggling to uphold a legacy, while trying to shield his wife Linda and their 2 kids from the weight of their world. With every turn of the page, Jake could see parallels in his community. Faded closed signs clung to storefronts like ghosts of hope. Neighborhood friendships frayed under the pressure of low wages and vanishing jobs. In that moment, he decided, that book would spark a fire. He wouldn't just keep those secrets to himself, he would share them. Thus, the idea of a weekly reading group bloomed inside him like fresh spring grass through winter's grasp. Gathering folks at the community center the following Friday, Jake's heart raced. He expected skepticism, maybe even laughter. Instead, they came. Friends, neighbors, faces he'd known since childhood. Their chairs formed a tight circle, an unbreakable bond he felt deep in his gut. As he shared tales of Aztec culture, murmurs filled the room, soft but loud with curiosity. Each story sparked a fierce debate, revealing unspoken fears and desires about life, death, and making choices. "Can you believe that?" someone exclaimed, eyes wide with shock as they dissected one fabled punishment. "What if we had to reckon with our mistakes like that?" Jake watched as the room ignited, the air crackling with fire and intensity. Each tale was a mirror to their own moral dilemmas, reflecting harsh realities such as addiction, loss of purpose, and the pressing need to provide when resources were dwindling. Families felt the heat, some unfurling hidden struggles along with their laughter. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But just as the sparks flew brighter, they unearthed shadows. Jake's best friend, Tom, confessed through trembling lips his battle with addiction. "I thought I could handle it, but I can't." The silence that fell was thick, heavy enough to drown a man. Linda, seated next to Jake, caught his eye and he saw the fear creeping into her expression, a fear of the unknown, of their own precarious finances. As secrets rolled like thunder through the group, Jake gathered himself. He stood for solidarity, for brotherhood, but what did that mean if it jeopardized his family? Torn between the familiar pull of loyalty and the duty towards Linda and the kids, Jake clenched his fists. He had to protect his family, yet his heart whispered of a larger responsibility. Could they band together in the face of chaos, or were they destined to fall apart, just like the very town they had grown up in? Questions unfurled like a dark cloud. Each moment drew in closer. Would they find a way to heal together, or would their fractures widen until the storm swallowed them whole? Jake's pulse raced, and in that swirling uncertainty, he realized he was standing before a choice that could separate or unite them all. Jake swallowed hard, feeling the weight of every pair of eyes in the room. He'd driven this group into an open space where they laid bare their souls, but now it felt different, fragile, like a thin ice bridge over uncertain waters. A cloud of doubt hung over him. Was he leading them toward healing or plunging them deeper into chaos? Tom's admission echoed in his mind, a haunting reminder of the darkness lurking beneath their shared experiences. "I can't," Tom had said, the rawness of those words cutting through the air. Jake felt the churning inside him, a mix of anger, sadness, and a desperate need to help his friend. They had all worn masks long enough. But how could he reach out without losing everything? Linda squeezed Jake's hand, grounding him. He turned to her, seeing the mixture of fear and fight in her eyes. She was every bit as concerned about their future as he was, but she also believed in their community. It was a spark of faith he dismissed in his scattered thoughts. What if we took this chance together? She whispered, somehow aware of his own inner struggle. Taking a breath, Jake decided to share his thoughts with the group. This isn't just about Aztec punishments or ancient tales. It's about confronting what lies underneath our own mistakes, regrets, and the burdens that weigh us down. He felt the intensity rising, every word a wave crashing against the shore of their realities. Tom, you aren't in this alone. We can face this together, in the open. What would it mean for all of us if we let these shadows see the light? A soft murmur echoed around the circle, as others wrestled with their fears. One by one, faces that had always worn smiles or silence began to soften. Jake could see it, connections forming, hearts beating a little faster, a community pulsing with hope and shared pain. Someone across the room raised their hand, voice steady yet hesitant. I lost my brother to addiction. I didn't know how to help him. It was a vulnerable admission, a crack in the armor others wore. The floodgates opened. Stories spilled out, raw and unedited. People spoke of loved ones, loss, and the shadows that lingered far too long. Every story cracked the silence, each admission another brick removed from the wall they had all built. Jake could see Linda's expression shift, the tightness in her brow easing as she listened, wrapping her own struggle with financial strain around the thread of solidarity weaving through the room. As Jake moved to reassure Tom, the tension seemed to unite them in that moment. We're here for you, brother. No judgment. Tom nodded, but Jake could see the war within him. Could they go on with hope despite their fears? But even as they began to open up, a jarring thought surfaced in Jake's mind. They were sharing scars, yes, but what would happen when the conversation shifted from words to actions? Would they really change their paths, or would their hopes fizzle out like dim lanterns in the darkness? He glanced around, catching the eyes of his neighbors, his friends. An unspoken promise lingered there, a desire to heal together. Yet, they needed more than understanding. They needed a plan. As they gathered their thoughts and the warmth of connection swirled around, Jake spoke up again. Next week, let us bring ideas on how we can help each other, truly. It won't be easy, but I believe we can transform everything if we commit. Murmurs of agreement filled the air, but under it all, skepticism lingered. Jake could almost hear the unvoiced questions bouncing around the circle. Did they have it in them to change? And if they failed, what then? The evening wound down, voices echoing with newfound determination and some lingering doubt. As people rose to leave, Jake felt hope, but also an inkling of turmoil brewing beneath the surface. In that charged silence, one thought pushed its way to the forefront. What if the darkest part of their history became the very thing that pushed them into a future they had always dreamed of? What if, next week, they couldn't face the storm at all? The next week arrived all too quickly, and Jake's stomach churned as he made his way to the meeting space. Doubts crept back in like unwelcome shadows. Had they truly opened the floodgates, or were they just stacking larger burdens on one another? He arrived early, hoping to set the atmosphere right, but found himself wrestling with what to say. Linda joined him, her presence a welcome comfort. You okay? She asked softly, her eyes scanning his face. Just thinking about how this goes tonight, Jake replied, rubbing the back of his neck. What if we don't have enough to offer? What if it all falls apart? She squeezed his hand again, a steadying force against his fears. We have each other. That counts for something, doesn't it? As people filtered in, the room buzzed with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Conversations fluttered, laughter mixed with soft sighs. Jake's heart raced as he glanced around, noting the faces of his friends, some hopeful, some fearful, all ready to face their truths once more. When everyone was settled, Jake gathered his breath. Thank you all for coming back. Last week was huge, we shared so much. But tonight, it's time to talk actions, plans. He paused, gauging the mood before continuing. What can we do to support each other in our healing? Let us share ideas. The air thickened with energy, and one by one, ideas began to spill forth, hesitantly at first, each suggestion blooming like the petals of a flower long unopened. A woman named Sarah spoke up, her voice trembling but clear. Maybe we could host a community event? Something to bring people together in remembrance and in strength? Or start a support group where we share progress, chimed in Mark, his face alight with inspiration. We can hold each other accountable. It could be a safe space where we don't just talk about struggles but celebrate victories, too. Jake felt a stirring in his heart. They were getting somewhere. As the conversation flowed, Tom remained quiet, his eyes glued to the floor. Jake caught his gaze and found the storm brewing behind it. What about you, Tom? Jake encouraged, hoping to coax him out. What do you think? Tom inhaled deeply. I appreciate the ideas, but I don't want to bring everyone down. No one is going to judge you here, Linda said gently. We're all in this together. You can't always carry the weight alone. The room fell silent. All eyes shifted to him, waiting. Jake could feel Tom's conflicted emotions like static in the air. It's just I've been thinking about what you said last week, Tom finally confessed, his voice cracking. I want to heal, but I feel stuck. Like I'm not worth it. Jake's heart sank. Didn't he know how to reassure his friend? Not yet. Those words cut deep. As everyone listened, he felt the gravity of their shared silence. Suddenly, Linda stood up, her eyes fierce yet compassionate. Tom, we want you to know that you're worth it. We're all here for you, not only in the good times, but more so in moments like this. We need those truths spoken, even if they hurt. Tension hung thickly in the room, but Jake could see the flicker of hope in Tom's eyes, a tiny flame flickering against the vast darkness. Maybe you could explore those feelings with us, Jake added softly. Feelings don't make you weak, acknowledging them takes courage. Tom nodded slowly, thoughts churning within. Worries transformed into reflections of possibilities. Perhaps sharing his darker thoughts was a step forward. Still, Jake felt the unease shifting again. What if pushing deeper forced Tom back into his shell? They were treading carefully, walking a tightrope between solidarity and pain. As the meeting dwindled down, an electric tension remained, the atmosphere bristling with unspoken words and half-formed ideas. The week had opened doors to uncomfortable truths, but as they ventured forth, would it bring the unity they desired or shatter the fragility they had just begun to build upon? The question loomed large in the hushed room. Would they embrace the chaos ahead, or would it all fall apart like crumbling bricks? The meeting had lingered in everyone's minds, heavy yet somehow exhilarating. Days turned into sleepless nights filled with reflections. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were teetering on the edge of something monumental, yet frighteningly unstable. The next gathering was just a few days away, and the anticipation pulsed like a heartbeat through Jake's veins. He caught himself replaying snippets of their last session, particularly Tom's raw vulnerability. Jake was restless at work, glancing at the clock more than focusing on the tasks at hand. With every tick, he imagined how Tom was doing. Were his fears subsiding, or was he spiraling deeper into doubt? Linda noticed the change in him. You're a million miles away, she remarked one afternoon, nudging him gently as they sat on the couch after a long day. Want to talk about it? He hesitated, his heart heavy with the weight of emotions. It's Tom, I just hope he's okay. I don't want him to feel like he's isolated again. She smiled softly, playing with the fringe of a pillow. You can't control how he feels, Jake. All you can do is be there when he needs you. Her words hung in the air like a fragile whisper, an anchor grounding him. The following meeting arrived with a mix of hope and anxiety. The small space felt more like a sanctuary this time. Even before they settled in, there was energy that danced along the walls. Jake could feel it, the weight of expectation, but also the warmth of camaraderie that had started to form. As newcomers filtered in, eyes met. There were nods of acknowledgement, smiles shared, a quiet promise that they were in this together. Tom took a seat at the back, his gaze still turned downward. Jake's chest tightened at the sight, wishing he could bridge the distance between Tom's fears and the warmth of the group. He opened the floor, aiming to ease the tension. Let's talk about what we've been feeling since our last meeting. We all left with a lot to think about. Sarah jumped in first, the spark of courage alight in her eyes. I've been really reflecting on my journey. It's tough remembering the low points, but I've realized they helped shape who I am. Exactly. It's like embracing both sides, chimed in Mark. I had a rough patch after losing my dad. But through sharing, it became clear that those painful moments don't define us, how we rise from them does. Relief washed over Jake. People were ready to share even more. It felt like they were gathering strength from each other's experiences, stitch by emotional stitch. Jake glanced at Tom again. What about you, Tom? How have you been since we last met? Silence echoed. Tom shifted in his seat, shoulders tight. The tension was palpable. I don't know, honestly, he admitted, voice wavering. I want to talk, but I feel so lost. Like I keep drowning. Coming from his heart, the words struck hard. It wasn't a murmur anymore. The storm was raging. Linda leaned forward, her voice steady but tender. Tom, it's okay to feel lost. It's a part of the process. We're all navigating this together. What can we do to help you? Hearing the invitation seemed to give Tom some strength. He took a deep breath. Maybe I need to write things down. Like what I'm feeling. It feels too tangled in my head. Jake's heart surged. That's incredible, Tom. Writing can be powerful. Want to share with us what you write? Tom nodded slowly, a flicker of interest lighting his eyes. The conversation began to evolve, spiraling into new ideas like a river branching out into streams. They discussed journaling, art, community outreach, each suggestion a stepping stone towards resilience. Hope flared in the vulnerable cracks where fear used to reside. As the meeting drew to a close, Jake couldn't ignore the unyielding tension still lingering in the air. Something felt unfinished. And then, Tom spoke again with a shaky determination. I want to start this support group, but it's going to take us all standing strong together, right? The room burst with agreement as anticipation rippled through Jake. Would they take that final leap of faith? The unity they needed was within reach, yet would they grasp it, or would the doubt reclaim them? Jake clenched his fists, heart pounding. The real challenges were just beginning. Would they find the strength to keep moving forward, or would they falter at the first sign of trouble? The room buzzed with excitement and murmurs of agreement after Tom's declaration. Jake could feel the energy shifting, transforming the tension into a fierce resolve. Everyone was in it together. But he noticed Tom, still grappling with uncertainty. The flicker of hope in his eyes was encouraging, yet the shadow of doubt loomed overhead. Let us think about how we want to structure this group, Mark said, his voice steady. We need a plan. Something concrete that helps us all. Sarah nodded, her expression serious. Yeah, what if we set a regular schedule? Weekly meetings or even bi-weekly would give us something to hold on to. Jake chimed in, that's a great idea. Consistency could give us all something to look forward to. Tom leaned back in his chair, taking it all in. A part of him was terrified. Was he really ready to take the lead? The thought of organizing something felt monumental. Would anyone even care what he had to say? But there was also a spark inside, a flicker of excitement. Can we focus on what we want to accomplish? Tom finally said, his voice filled with a newfound determination. I think it would help if we shared our goals. Why are we here? Jake felt his heart race. This was the moment, the perfect opportunity for everyone to lay their stakes down. That's powerful, Tom. Let us go around and share why we want to be here. One by one, people opened up. Mark spoke of wanting to heal from his losses, to find acceptance in his grief. Sarah mentioned her desire to connect with others and not feel so alone after losing friends to her own struggles. Their words etched as a tapestry of shared pain, but also a glowing sense of hope. Tom listened intently, but as he prepared to share, his voice quivered. I want to find direction. I want to stop feeling like I'm losing my grip on everything. The room was still. Each person could feel the weight of those words. It was an honest admission, raw and beautiful. Jake could see people nodding, relating to Tom's struggle. Then Linda spoke up gently. Every step taken to share is a step towards healing, Tom. You're already doing that by being here. A wave of warmth enveloped the room. They were becoming a fortress of support for each other. As they continued sharing, an unexpected clarity emerged. This wasn't just about coping, it was about thriving together. But just as the momentum had built, Jake glanced up at the clock and his heart sank. Time was slipping away. They needed more. "Hey," he said, breaking the silence that had settled, "how about we set some actionable steps? Let us each pick one thing we can commit to before the next meeting." Eyes sparkled at the idea. They began brainstorming, tossing around suggestions. Journaling, reaching out to the community, maybe even hosting an event. Energy buzzed as they all focused on how they could build not just support but an environment of growth. As the meeting wrapped up, Tom looked visibly lighter. Sure, the fears remained, but now they felt like manageable shadows rather than engulfing storms. Jake felt a smile stretching across his face. Maybe, just maybe, they could turn this group into something extraordinary. When it finally ended, people lingered for the camaraderie, chatting about ideas and aspirations. Jake approached Tom, wanting to talk. "You were incredible tonight," he said, his heart swelling with pride. "You led that conversation boldly." Tom shuffled his feet, a soft grin creeping on his face. "It wasn't just me. We're in this together." Jake's pulse quickened. This was it. They were building something powerful. Just as he started to breathe a sigh of relief, the door swung open and a stranger stepped in, their troubled expression cutting through the joy in the room like a knife. "I heard you guys need help," the newcomer said, eyes darting between the group. Jake felt the buzz of the room shift again. What did this mean? Who were they? Could this be the twist they hadn't anticipated? The stranger's voice hung heavily in the air, silencing the room filled with laughter just moments before. Everyone turned to face the newcomer, a young woman whose eyes spoke of weariness and pain. Her clothes were simple but neat, an attempt to project confidence that seemed almost fragile against the backdrop of their shared enthusiasm. "Help?" Sarah echoed, her brow furrowing in concern. "What do you mean?" The woman took a deep breath, her gaze focusing on each member of the group as she spoke. "I overheard you talking about healing, about supporting each other. Look, I just moved here, and I've been through some stuff. I think this group could help me too." Her voice trembled slightly, the vulnerability clear. Jake's heart twisted in response. This was the moment they'd hoped for, the opportunity to expand their circle and allow others to join. But that excitement was tangled with the apprehension of bringing in someone new, someone who might not fit. A fleeting glance at Tom revealed a mix of emotions dancing across his face, mirroring Jake's own uncertainty. "What's your name?" Tom asked, his voice calm, yet full of curiosity as he stepped forward. "Lila," she replied, her posture relaxing just a bit under Tom's direct gaze. "Okay, Lila." "Welcome," Jake said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "What kind of help are you looking for?" "I lost my brother a few months ago," Lila admitted, her voice now barely above a whisper. "It feels like I'm floating. I don't know how to go forward, and I've not found anyone to talk to." The room sighed collectively, a wave of empathy washing over them. Everyone here had faced their own battles, each story a thread weaving them closer together. Mark's eyes softened, prompting him to step closer to Lila. "I can't imagine how heavy that must be," he said gently. "You've found a safe place here, and we're all working towards healing together. You don't have to be alone." Jake watched Lila's expression shift, a flicker of hope amidst the sorrow. She nodded slowly, a small but genuine smile tugging at her lips. "Thank you. I've been scared to reach out, and I didn't know if I could just show up like this." Tom stepped forward next, a newfound determination etched on his face. "You're not alone, Lila. This group is about sharing and supporting each other. We'd love for you to join us." Before Lila could respond, Jake felt an urge to guide the conversation further. "How about we share some of our commitments? It might give you a sense of what we're all about." That idea sparked another round of conversations, with each person detailing their pledges. Lila listened intently, her eyes lighting up at the tales of reaching out to others or expressing themselves through writing. The room filled with warmth again, each commitment adding layers to their connection. As the meeting wound down, Jake caught sight of the clock and realized they had gone over time. But no one seemed to care. The energy was too infectious, the bond too strong. Lila emerged as part of the growing tapestry. Finally, as people started gathering their belongings, Lila hesitated before speaking up. "Do you think I could lead the next meeting?" The question caught everyone off guard. Jake's breath hitched. Was she ready? The idea of relinquishing the moment to someone new felt like facing the storm again. But Tom glanced at him with a nod, as if encouraging his trust in Lila. "Absolutely," he said, feeling the surge of acceptance. "We'd love to hear your ideas." Jake's heart surged with a mix of apprehension and excitement. What revelations might come from Lila's perspective? He felt the room filling with anticipation. As they moved towards the exit, laughter sprinkled the conversations, but Jake couldn't shake the flutter of anticipation. Something powerful was brewing, and he wasn't entirely sure what it meant for the group. But one thing was certain: they were on the cusp of transformation. Just beyond the hall, shadows of the past loomed, but now there was light too. What would Lila bring to the next meeting? Would it ignite a spark they hadn't yet imagined? The next meeting felt different from the start. The air buzzed with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Lila stood at the front of the room, her hands gripping the edges of the table. She was nervous, but also determined. Jake could see the way she swallowed hard, gathering strength from somewhere deep within. "What if I mess up?" she whispered, glancing over at him. He smiled encouragingly, a nod of reassurance. "You won't. Just speak from your heart. That's what matters." Lila took a deep breath and for a moment the room fell silent. The laughter and chatter from the previous meeting faded into the background. "Hi everyone," she started, her voice steadying as she locked eyes with each person in the room. "Thank you for welcoming me. I'm really grateful to be here." Jake watched her regain composure. It was as if the warmth from the group enveloped her, lending her strength. "Today, I'd like to talk about grief. I know it's a heavy topic, but I think it's important to share what we feel." Mark shifted in his seat, leaning forward with interest. The topic resonated deeply. It was a thread they had all touched at some point in their lives. Lila continued, sharing her story of loss. Her brother was not just family, he was her anchor, her confidant. Losing him left a gaping hole, and the fight to fill it felt like an uphill battle. "I thought I was broken," Lila confessed, her voice cracking slightly as she choked back tears. "But being here with all of you has made me realize that I can find strength in sharing my burden. We don't have to carry these weights alone." Emotion crackled in the room, the connection tangible. Sarah nodded, her eyes glistening. "It's so easy to feel isolated after a loss, like no one understands. But sharing helps, it lightens the load." Lila's heart warmed at the affirmation. She could see the nods around the room, the unspoken agreement that grief was a universal struggle. Tom chimed in, "It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. Sometimes it hurts, but it's necessary to get to the core." Lila smiled, feeling the energy shift. Here they were, opening up, emboldened by the seeking of understanding. Discussion spiraled, everyone contributing their own stories of love, loss, and resilience, each narrative slicing through the silence like a beacon of light. As the conversation deepened, Lila realized she began to feel a part of this newfound fabric that had been woven over the past months. It was a tapestry where every thread was vital. The vulnerability drew them closer, a binding force she didn't know she needed. Time slipped away unnoticed until Jake glanced at the clock once more. "I can't believe how fast that went." His voice broke the spell, leaving everyone grinning sheepishly. Lila took a moment to absorb their faces, the mixture of shared sorrow and rising hope. "I want to continue this sharing. Can we make it a regular part of our meetings?" The enthusiasm in the room was palpable. Everyone chimed in with agreement, a chorus of support. Jake felt a rush of relief wash over him. Lila was leading them into new territory, allowing space for healing and connection. As the gathering wrapped up, Lila found herself surrounded by smiles. She still felt the sadness lurking, but there was light too. Everyone had become a beacon, promising they'd help her find her way back. But just as she felt the warmth embrace her, an unexpected voice interrupted the moment. A quiet figure stood at the door. Their face was familiar, but their presence felt heavy with uncertainty. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think I need to talk to you all about something important." Lila's heart sank. Who was this? What could they possibly want? The energy in the room shifted again, tension threading through the air like electricity. All eyes turned toward the newcomer, the promise of hope mingling with anxious curiosity. What revelation lay heavy on this stranger's lips? The room fell into a hush, the previously vibrant energy bowing to the newcomer's solemn presence. Lila squinted, trying to place the figure standing at the doorway. It was Susan, her old high school friend, someone she hadn't seen in years. Susan's eyes darted nervously around the room before she focused on Lila. "I didn't mean to crash your moment," Susan murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I really need to speak to you, to all of you." Lila felt an unsettling knot in her stomach. What could Susan possibly want to discuss that required everyone's attention? She hesitated, gesturing for her friend to join them. "Please come in," Lila urged, her voice firm despite the flutter of anxiety within her. As Susan stepped forward, Lila could see the traces of worry etched across her face. It was the same look she'd seen before when Susan had faced family issues. The way her hands fidgeted, the slight tremor in her voice, it all told Lila that this was serious. "Something has been weighing heavily on me," Susan began, her gaze shifting to the room full of unknowing faces. "You all talked about loss, and I need to share something that might change how you view your own grief." Lila's heart raced. She felt the collective breath of the group as they leaned in, intent on hearing Susan's story. This was no longer just about her, this was about every heart in the room. "My brother passed away a year ago," Susan revealed, her voice thick with emotion. "And for months, I was a ghost. I didn't talk about it, didn't allow anyone in. But I did something I never imagined I would do. I went to a medium." The murmurs in the room grew, as each person processed the idea, some leaning in even closer, intrigued. "Why would you do that?" Jake asked gently, breaking the silence. "I thought it might give me closure," Susan continued. "I wanted to know if he was okay. If he was still with me somehow." The air thickened with the intensity of Susan's confession. Lila could see the raw honesty in her expression, and somehow, it sparked something in the others. They could relate to her desperation, her yearning for connection. "What happened?" Lila asked, almost breathless. "I got a message," Susan said, tears welling in her eyes. "He told me to tell my family that he loved us, that he was proud of us, but he also said something I didn't expect. He warned us about holding on to our grief. It was a difficult truth, he said, to live, to embrace joy, and to remember the good times." The weight of her words hung in the air, a poignant reminder of what they had all been experiencing. The idea that grief, while powerful and poignant, shouldn't overshadow the beauty of life. "Sometimes our loved ones want us to be happy," Susan continued, drawing several nods of understanding from the group. "And I realized that by shutting myself away, I was being unfair to him." Lila felt a surge of warmth and resonance in the room. It was as if they were all threading into the same tapestry, stitching together their experiences of love and loss, lifting each other toward a shared hope. "We can still carry them with us," Lila spoke, her voice stronger now. "We can choose to honor their memories by finding joy in our lives." A moment of silence followed, each person lost in their thoughts. Susan's revelation had opened a new door, leading them into a space of healing and possibility. But as the weight of it all settled lightly in their hearts, Susan's phone buzzed loudly, jolting everyone back. "It's my mom," she said, her brow furrowing as she answered it. The conversation turned serious as her face shifted, her features tightening. Can we take this outside?" she asked, her voice suddenly urgent. Lila exchanged glances with Jake, confusion washing over them. What was happening now? As Susan stepped out, the group shifted uneasily, sensing another layer of tension overhead. Do you think she's okay? Sarah asked, concern lacing her words. Lila wasn't sure. There was something about the way Susan rushed from the room that sent a chill down her spine. What news could a phone call bring that would warrant such haste? As anticipation buzzed once more, Lila felt a new wave of worry cresting. What revelations awaited them next? Who would step forward to share another story from that familiar door? The air was thick with tension, and the promise of something crucial hung just out of reach. Lila glanced anxiously at the door, her heart beating like a drum. The seconds stretched into an eternity. The unsettling quiet enveloped the room, every breath sounding amplified in the charged atmosphere. Susan's absence felt like a gaping hole, pulling at the edges of their comfort. We should go check on her, Jake finally said, his tone a mix of concern and determination. Before Lila could reply, Jake was already moving toward the door. The others exchanged glances, and then one by one, they began to follow. There was strength in numbers, and they all sensed the urgency. As they stepped into the hallway, the muted sounds of laughter and chatter from the party faded away. Outside, the night air was cool and invigorating, a stark contrast to the atmosphere that had been so heavy just moments ago. Lila's nerves tingled, and she felt a rush of adrenaline as they rounded the corner. Susan stood a few feet away, one hand pressed tightly to her ear as her eyes darted around the darkened grounds, searching, listening. Her body language was rigid, the tension palpable, and Lila could see the glimmer of tears on her lashes. "Everything okay?" Lila called out, her voice cutting through the stillness. Susan turned, the phone still cradled against her ear, but the moment she saw them, the worry in her eyes shifted to a sudden rush of fear. She ended the call and hurried over, her strides quick but shaky. "It's my mom," she said. Dad collapsed. Susan's voice cracked. "It's bad. They're at the hospital now." A wave of shock rushed through the group. Lila felt her breath hitch. How could everything change so rapidly? Just a moment ago, they'd been discussing grief in a way that felt so disconnected from this raw, immediate reality. "Did she say?" Jake began, but his voice trailed off, as if he couldn't complete the question. "No," Susan managed, her face pale. "But you know how he's not in great health. We didn't think. I thought we had more time." Lila's heart ached. The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of possibility, the reality of losing a parent, a sudden tragedy that turned the world upside down in an instant. She could feel the energy of fear grip the group, twisting deep within them. "What can we do to help?" Lila stepped forward, pulling Susan into an embrace. She felt the tremor in her friend's body and wrapped her arms tighter. "I don't even know," Susan whispered, her voice muffled against Lila's shoulder. "I just keep thinking about how much I wanted to mend things with him, how we always put it off." "We can drive you," Jake suggested quickly, glancing over at the others, who nodded in agreement. "We'll go together. You don't have to go through this alone." "Yeah, it's too much to bear by yourself," Sarah added softly. "We'll be there. For you. Whatever it takes." A flicker of gratitude crossed Susan's face, overshadowed by worry, but in that moment, it was enough. She needed them, and they were all there, ready to support her through this twisted turn of fate. As they began to move toward the exit, Lila felt a surge of determination. They were all grieving something, some more than others, and not just loss, but the possibility of healing and connection. But as they stepped outside, each of them grappling with their own emotions, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that this night held even more unforeseen revelations. Could the weight of loss open deep corners of pain that they hadn't yet confronted together? She turned back to look at the familiar space they had shared just moments ago. Would they find not only sorrow but a chance to understand the fragility of life and the beauty in its connections? With hands clasped tight, they ventured into the night, hearts entwined, uncertain of what awaited them next, but knowing that together they could face anything. Lila's mind buzzed with questions and fears, and she could only hope that they would emerge changed for the better. What truth would they uncover as the night unfolded? Time seemed to stretch as they hurried toward the hospital, but Lila felt a strange calm settling over her. The uncertainty of the evening hung thick, but they were together, and somehow, that made all the difference. The drive was quiet, each person lost in their thoughts as the headlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating the road ahead. When they arrived, the hospital loomed before them, bright and sterile in contrast to the swirling emotions filling their hearts. Within those walls, lives hung in balance, moments stretched thin, and every second mattered. Lila's throat tightened as they entered, leading Susan through the automatic doors with gentle encouragement. The waiting room was a cacophony of emotions. Families huddled in corners, some grasping tightly to each other for comfort, others silently falling apart. It was both a safe haven and a haunting reflection of all they had discussed about grief and loss. Lila felt the pulse of anxiety as they settled in, mere spectators to the lives unraveling around them. "We'll stay here as long as you need," Jake said softly, putting a hand on Susan's shoulder. She nodded, gratitude and fear mingling in her eyes. They all sat close, a circle of support, their identities fused as friends spiraling along the same path. Minutes turned into hours, filled with shared stories and anxious glances toward the double doors. They kept each other grounded, the warmth of their presence breaking the icy grip of fate. It felt surreal to be reliving their own fears here, yet these were the same shadows that had drawn them together as a community. It was during a quiet moment, everyone lost in memories and hopes, when Susan's phone buzzed. Tension rose as she glanced at the screen, the silence in the room thickening. Slowly, she raised her eyes to meet the group's gaze, and without words, her heart mirrored theirs, anticipation and dread dancing in the flicker of hope. With trembling hands, she answered. The call was quick, and as she ended it, fresh tears pooled at the corners of her eyes. "He is stable," Susan whispered, relief flooding a path through her worry. "But they need to keep him overnight." A sigh escaped her lips, followed by a soft smile filled with overwhelming gratitude. They were collectively relieved, their hearts echoing her emotion. "I'm so thankful you all are here," Susan said, her voice thick. "I don't think I could have faced this alone." "Not alone," Mark affirmed, "we're in this together." In that moment, Lila understood that their shared vulnerabilities had woven an unbreakable bond, a family built from the ashes of loss and hope. Each story, every tear shed over the past weeks had crafted space for joy to exist alongside sorrow. As the initial shock began to fade, they moved into action. Following Susan's news of her father's stability, they found a waiting room filled with warmth as laughter began rippling through it once again. "This isn't over yet," Jake said, energized by the change in atmosphere. "How about tomorrow we create a care package for your dad? Just something to remind him we're cheering him on." "That's a great idea," Lila replied, her spirits lifting. "We can all contribute something meaningful." "Absolutely," Sarah's voice chimed in. "It could be funny socks or a heartfelt note." The room buzzed with excitement as they brainstormed ideas blooming like spring flowers breaking through the winter frost. In that lively discussion, the shadow of grief began to shift, their focus turning from fear to a celebration of life. Ideas flowed freely, infusing the atmosphere with a pulsing energy that echoed their unity. Susan's heart swelled with gratitude, witnessing how their experiences had shaped resilience in the wake of vulnerability. Just before they departed for the night, Lila squeezed Susan's hand. "We can face all this together, you know. Your dad will appreciate everything we're doing." As they walked out of the hospital, the moon hung high, casting a silvery glow that felt symbolically powerful. Each step felt lighter, echoing with an unspoken promise their paths were intertwined, illuminated by the choices they'd made to connect, to share, and to uplift one another. Over the next few weeks, their meetings flourished into a vibrant tapestry of support, laughter, and healing. Lila stepped into her role with confidence, her voice steady as she guided them through discussions on grief, resilience, and the beauty of remembering those they had lost, allowing joy to reside alongside sorrow. Jake found reassurance in his leadership, helping others navigate their burdens while honorably balancing his own. Tom's journey evolved, transforming from a place of uncertainty into a powerful advocate for change within the group. Each individual became a thread, woven together in a new fabric of understanding, acceptance, and hope. Through shared laughter, tearful stories, and newfound friendships, They sculpted a community out of their fractured experiences, nurturing life with every meeting. Their group became an anchor in their disparate lives, a sanctuary where hope flourished amidst the chaos of their realities. And no longer just a gathering of people tackling personal demons. They had formed a family. Together, they had learned to embrace every emotion, holding space for both joy and sorrow to coexist, reminding one another that life continues to be a quilt of experiences stitched from love, loss, and everything in between. As they sat in relaxed camaraderie one evening, sipping coffee and sharing their daily triumphs, Lila realized they had become what they had set out to build: a place of healing, community, and an unwavering connection. It was there, in the laughter and stories exchanged, that she understood the true power of vulnerability. There were still storms to weather, but now they faced them together. Years later, Lila looked back, knowing that evening in the hospital had been the spark igniting a journey of transformation. They had discovered not just the weight of their losses but the incredible strength found in companionship. They were changed not just by their past, but by their courage to connect in ways words could hardly express. Their collective story, a testament to resilience, continued to inspire others in their community. They brought hope into homes that had felt darkness and loss. The cycles of healing unfurled like petals of a flower. In that moment, as laughter rang out and love filled the air, she felt the spark of life itself. Would they ever stop evolving? No. Because they had embraced change. They had learned to cherish every moment, every connection, and now they were actively choosing to live, not just exist. That's how stories transform. That's how communities thrive. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Your support makes all the difference.